going to do the ratings, and we're going to do some comments from Sue Bird, because she's not very happy about, I guess, some WNBA fans, Fever fans, Caitlin Clark fans, I would say, that may have wanted refunds after Caitlin Clark got hurt. And I don't think it's a apples to apples, apples to oranges, whatever you want to do, comparison to the National Basketball Association, but I can somewhat understand where fans are coming from, because we're witnessing something kind of rare.
To go, oh, the Fever fan base.
Yeah, what do you mean by that? That has to go.
Oh, these new fans. It has to go, because it's not the Fever fans. It's not Caitlin fans. That is a large group of people. Let's stick with the Fever for a second. That is a large group of people. And what we're talking about as we get into the meat of this, we're talking about the faction of that group that is pushing racist agendas and is pushing hate and creating, divisiveness online, acting as fans, acting as Fever fans, acting as Caitlin fans.
Caitlin Clark fans are demanding refunds like she personally charged their credit cards and missed their birthdays. Enter Sue Bird, WNBA royalty who just crash-landed into the drama with a lecture so spicy it could melt your Wi-Fi. Meanwhile, Fever ratings are soaring like Clark hit a buzzer beater from the parking lot. What's really going on? Refunds, rants, and ridiculous expectations collide in this epic meltdown, and Sue Bird's got thoughts. Buckle up, because this one's got receipts, rebounds, and a reality check.
A larger arena. First of all, WNBA was awesome before Caitlin got here, and it's been awesome for a really long time. They're probably going to go, and yes, it might be a little disappointed they don't see Caitlin play, but they're probably going to go and get an amazing game and then be like, oh wow, this is awesome, I love the WNBA.
The only thing that really stood out, to be honest, was there was one quote in one of the front office sports articles. It's unclear whether the teams will provide any compensation for fans who bought tickets to their games. And I was like, what? Injuries are a part of it. Again, I get it. It sucks. If you bought a ticket to see somebody and they're hurt, I get it. That is a big bummer. But no, you would never say that about men's sports.
Sue Bird says the WNBA is a business? Oh, honey, what business? Like Girl Scout cookie stand business? Bake sale with a banner that says, please like us? Because if losing money for 25 straight years is your business model, then Enron is blushing in the corner saying, at least we tried? The WNBA has been financially surfing on the NBA's couch since '97. This isn't a business. It's a very expensive group project where the NBA is the only one doing the homework.
They're not talking about WNBA tickets that may normally be $23 or $18 or $12. You're talking about tickets that in some cases people have paid $400, $500, $600 for, much above the actual face ticket value, specifically because Caitlin Clark. So,
and don't get me wrong, Sue Bird is a legend if you already knew who Sue Bird was. But for millions of us, we just discovered her right after Caitlin Clark started showing up on our screens like a walking Sports Center notification. You want to know when I first heard the term Seattle Storm? When I thought it was a weather warning. Turns out it was just Sue Bird and a gym full of folding chairs.
To go, because it's not the Fever fans. It's not Caitlin fans. That is a large group of people. Let's stick with the Fever for a second. That is a large group of people. And what we're talking about as we get into the meat of this, we're talking about the faction of that group that is pushing agendas and is pushing hate and creating, divisiveness online, acting as fans. Acting as Fever fans, acting as Caitlin fans. Now, whether or not they like basketball, whether or not, I don't know. But that's the group of people.
Look, Sue says this is about growing the game, which is adorable. It really is. But grow it into what exactly? A slightly bigger group of people politely pretending they watched the All-Star game? Because let's be real here. Most of us didn't know the WNBA even had teams outside of Indiana until Caitlin Clark started getting tackled like she owed somebody child support. And let's talk about this business mindset again. Businesses usually require customers, ticket buyers, merch sales, TV ratings.
Specifically, Diana Taurasi and Sue Bird, because Sue Bird has come out and, for lack of a better way of putting it, she's gaslighting fans, plain and simple. She's blowing smoke straight up your keister about the narrative surrounding Caitlin.
Stuff that indicates the market is vibing with you. The WNBA has been floating like a used pool noodle, thanks to the NBA's money cannon. They're not breaking even. They're not even breaking delusions. The NBA writes the check, smiles politely, and then throws Giannis on a cereal box to cover the loss.
Sue Bird comes out on the most recent episode of the Megan Rapinoe and Sue Bird podcast, where she speaks pretty candidly about some of the issues that have been going on within the WNBA, and more specifically in what we're going to talk about today. Sue Bird highlights how Caitlin Clark, the Caitlin Clark new fans, the new fans in the WNBA, they're not the ones responsible for all this toxic racial dialogue that's been surrounding the WNBA this year. No.
So when Sue Bird gets up and acts like Caitlin Clark fans are some sort of disruptive invaders storming the castle gates with unreasonable expectations, I have to laugh. I have to. Because here's the thing. Sue, we are the WNBA now. That's right. The Caitlin Clark fan base is the attendance. We are the Nielsen ratings. We are the reason your merchandise table suddenly has to restock mediums and larges instead of just XS and please take one. You see, we didn't come here to support some vaguely socialist basketball commune. We came here to see Caitlin Clark shoot from Ohio and drop dimes like she's Venmoing teammates in real time. And if she gets knocked to the floor every other possession while league veterans do their best impression of Mean Girls in warm-ups, well, then we're gonna speak on it. Loudly.
I caught this clip about Sue Bird and Megan Rapinoe complaining about Fever fans because they don't want to show up due to the fact that Caitlin Clark is hurt.
And no, my loyalty does not extend to the entire WNBA. My team, the Indiana freaking Fever. That's it. The whole team. Because if we're being honest, the rest of y'all, we don't know your names. And at this point, we're too afraid to ask. You're not on our radar unless you're guarding Kaylin like she stole your lunch in 3rd grade or fouling her like you're auditioning for the W. So when these longtime fans or ex-players start sneering at the new crowd and talking down to the very people finally paying attention, I have to ask, do you want the WNBA to survive? Or do you just want to be right in your little bubble of suffering and moral superiority while the league continues its quiet tradition of empty seats and televised games? On channel 973, because Caitlin Clark didn't ruin your league. She's the only reason anyone's even arguing about it. You were playing with crickets and cardboard cutouts last year. You're telling people who just spent $400, 0 cents on tickets and gas to see Caitlin that they should be patient, grateful, and quiet. Wrong fan base. We didn't just show up to sip overpriced Sprite and be lectured by someone whose jersey was on clearance 2 months ago.
Sue Bird, respectfully, calm down. Respectfully, cut it out, please. Please cut it out respectfully. First things first, racism has been impacting the WNBA. Sue, you're right. But not the brainwashed definition that everybody goes to when they think of racism. Racism has been impacting the WNBA because black women within the WNBA hate to see their white counterparts.
And yes, we see the resentment. We hear the snide post-game interviews, the shade thrown in pressers. We read the tweets that barely contain their eye rolls. She's not the only one in the league. Duh. But she is the only reason your next paycheck might come from actual revenue instead of NBA donor fatigue. And don't worry, it's not just Caitlin we love. We've adopted the whole Fever squad. That's our Avengers lineup right now. From Nelissa Smith to Aaliyah Boston, we're learning the names, buying the jerseys, watching the games, not just the highlights, games, which in WNBA terms is basically a fan miracle. But this whole "you're doing it wrong" routine from the OGs and gatekeepers, it's gotta stop. You sound like Blockbuster in the Netflix era, yelling about late fees while everyone else just wants to stream. Do you know how hard it is to get people to care about women's sports? Really care? Caitlin Clark brought that care on a rocket ship. She turned middle school gymnasiums into national arenas overnight. And now that she's here, you want to scold the fans for being too passionate, too loud, too demanding? Girl, we came here for greatness, not guilt trips. We didn't sign up for therapy sessions about how nobody watched in 2004. This is about expectations, real ones. Because you can't call it a business and then act shocked when customers ask for receipts. That's the definition of business. We paid, we watched, we tuned in. Now we want a product worth supporting.
story. So Sue Bird is not holding back, calling out the racism in the WNBA surrounding Caitlin Clark. So she feels that Clark is being used as a pawn, while true WNBA fans are disgusted with the racial tensions. It's about time someone speaks up. The league has been dealing with this for too long, and Bird is shining the light on the issue. Well, go ahead and shine on, Ms. Bird. Get it all out there and let us understand what is going on behind the scenes.
So the next time Sue Bird or any other legacy player wants to give a TED Talk about patience, maybe consider this. We're not the problem. We're the only reason you have a platform to give that lecture in the first place. And you can call that entitlement, or you can call it what it actually is, a new era. Now do something with them. Or at least try not to blink. And here's the kicker. Caitlin Clark could be wrapped in bubble wrap, sitting 3 seats down from the water cooler, and fans would still be swarming the arena like she's Taylor Swift with a basketball. That's how powerful her presence is. She doesn't even need to play. Yet Sue Bird isn't talking about that. No, she's over here lecturing fans like we accidentally stumbled into the wrong lecture hall. We need you to look at these refs who think flagrant foul is a suggestion. What are these calls? Caitlin's getting hacked like someone's trying to steal her bank password, and the whistle's just chillin', taking a nap. Maybe it's on silent mode, or maybe the refs are too busy checking their fantasy football scores because they sure as hell aren't watching the game.
How high would you say the ceiling is for Caitlin year 2?
Yeah. I mean,
what ceiling?
What did Michael? I always like to quote Michael Jordan in these moments.
The ceiling,
is the roof.
Yeah.
Yeah, she was incredible last year. Learned a lot about the league, so she's just probably going to add not necessarily anything to her game. I know she worked out in the off season and talks about her strength and wanting to get more physical, but it's the experience part that as you get older in this league starts to show itself combined with the skill. So she knows the league now, and so that's dangerous. She's surrounded by a ton of talent. They did really well in free agency, but yeah, it's her second year, so it'll be fun to see like what adjustments she makes and what she did.
And don't get me started on the WWE auditions happening in the paint. Some of these players aren't playing basketball. They're out here committing crimes. Legal ones, yes, but barely. I've seen fewer body slams in a UFC prelim. We've got players shoulder checking, throwing elbows, and staring people down like they're in a bar fight scene from a 90s movie. Meanwhile, the league's just smiling like, isn't this competitive spirit? But when Sue Bird gets up and talks about respect the league and respect the veterans, okay, sure, fine. But maybe those same veterans could respect the game too. Because body checking the most talked about rookie in sports like she insulted your mom's potato salad recipe, that's not a tough defense. That's insecurity and high tops. Meanwhile, Caitlin Clark is sitting on the sidelines for a few games and still packing out stadiums like she's Beyonce in a warm-up suit. Fans aren't there for popcorn. They're not there to break down defensive rotations. They're there to breathe the same air as the phenom who single-handedly forced sports anchors to learn how to pronounce Nalissa Smith's name correctly. Because here's what matters. People are still buying those tickets, still driving across states.
She's a soccer player, right? They travel around the country and around the world, right? Aren't fans spending thousands and thousands of dollars, on plane tickets, hotels, food, jerseys, and all that just to see you when you played? Yeah, so it's the same concept with the WNBA. They jacked up the prices. The hotels are expensive. The food is expensive. They're going out their way to see one game. So when they don't get the chance to see Caitlin Clark, they have every right to complain.
Still bringing their daughters with posters, praying they can snap a blurry picture of Caitlin waving. She could be wearing jeans and a hoodie, not even in uniform, and people are like, I swear she looked in my direction. I will never recover. And Sue wants to lecture those people. You know who should be getting a public message? The refs. The ones with eyes wide shut. How do you miss a full-on forearm shiver to Caitlin's ribs in HD? It's like watching someone mug a mascot at mid-court and yelling, play on! The NBA has bad calls too, but at least they have the decency to pretend they're trying. And while we're at it, where's the accountability for players who are clearly not just playing physical, but auditioning for the reboot of Prison Break? There's a difference between intensity and petty vendettas. But still, Caitlin shows up, maybe not in uniform, but in spirit. Fans know she's on the sideline, plotting her next 40-point vengeance tour. They know she's healing, resting, and likely watching film like a mad scientist, planning her next creation. And they're patient. They're loyal. They're holding their breath for her return like it's a mid-season.
New fans are sucking the fucking life out of the WNBA right now. It's just the truth. You are right, new fans. There has never been more viewership because of Caitlin Clark. There's never been more attention. But you know what there was in the WNBA last year and the years prior? There was other storylines. There was joy. There was talk of competition. There was talk of what was actually happening on the court. And all there is right now is a culture war. It is a them versus you, a you versus them. There is othering. It is gross. It is not fun. It is not engaging.
And that is not something you scold. That's something you celebrate. Because let's be real, if Caitlin Clark retired tomorrow and opened a coffee shop in Iowa, attendance across the WNBA would plummet faster than a free throw in Detroit. That's not shade, it's just math. This isn't a slight to the other players, it's just proof that the league finally has a face, a draw, a ticket seller. Someone who doesn't just play the game, but sells it. Who makes people care? She dragged a college team to multiple Final Fours like she was playing Mario Kart in real life. She's got half of America watching women's basketball voluntarily. You know how crazy that is? It's like buying concert tickets just to hear your favorite singer talk before the band comes on. And yet here we are, still pretending the bigger issue is too much Caitlin. No, the issue is too many bad whistles, too many elbows to the jaw, and too many salty players who treat her like she cut the line in a cafeteria they've been waiting in for a decade. But guess what? Fame doesn't ask for permission. It shows up, ready or not.
Caitlin's hard foul, which turned into a flagrant on Angel Reese, which sparked all the things that we dealt with last season. And, the league currently is investigating any racism that happened from the fans or anything that was said. It's almost as if we didn't learn from last year. That Twitter conversation turns into mainstream media conversation because the mainstream media still isn't quite hip to women's sports. They're not quite understanding this world, this game, and are putting all kinds of narratives all over the place. And so those that really do understand this world, they just don't have big enough platforms, which is why.
And Caitlin showed up. And now she's here, sidelines or not, pulling more gravity than any other star. Even when she's not in the box score, she's in the building. And that's enough to make the whole arena buzz like someone flipped the on switch. So, if Sue Bird wants to help the league, awesome. Then use your voice to hold the right people accountable. Shine a light on the blown calls, the blind spots, the cheap shots, the passive-aggressive post-game shade. And we're not just watching, we're documenting, dissecting, and discussing every second. And even with all that, even with bruises, cheap shots, and terrible officiating, the fans are still here, still watching, still screaming for a glimpse of a legend in the making, even if she's in a hoodie and not sneakers. That's not fandom, that's devotion. And the WNBA would be wise to embrace it, not lecture it.